I'm Larry Shulman, and well, thank you for coming. I'm a strategic leadership consultant, whatever that means. But what I do also is I work with leaders as a consultant as well. So leadership is my thing, but particularly how leadership can deliver strategy. So the question I pose to people I work with is, what kind of leadership will it take from you, both individually and collectively, to achieve your strategic objectives? Okay? But some of you will recognize that the traditional approach to strategy is you have a strategic plan, the plan is set, and in my experience, many of the clients I work with, this is what we do. Oh yeah. We just update it. Now most of you will know that in today's world, actually in yesterday's world as well, but in today's world, that's just not good enough anymore. Now clients who tell me that they don't do that, when you dig deep into it, effectively that's what they're doing. They say, well that's what's got us to here, and what we just need to do is we just need to update it. Okay? So I think we need to challenge some of that thinking. So I'm going to set you guys a challenge to start off with. I'm going to show you a video in a minute. Now, if you've seen this video, I want you to keep the answer to yourself, because some people will have seen this kind of thing. So, I'm going to show you a short video, and I want you to watch this video, and I want you to count the number of times that the ball gets passed between the players in white. And I'm going to see who gets closest to that number. So let's start. Okay, anyone want to give me a number? 18? 17? 16? Anything different?
27.
Or 20?
27.
Oh, okay. And someone maybe 15-ish? Okay. There's some debate, obviously. Okay. Now, for those of you who've never seen this before, only for those of you who've never seen this before, did you see anything else going on? You saw a gorilla. Are you sure? Yes, it's been a long day, hasn't it? For those of you who haven't seen this before, who saw it for the first time, the rest of you, did you see a gorilla?
Yeah.
I mean, it has, you know, it's hot in here. Let's have a quick look.
Yeah, it was passing in the middle. You didn't see it.
No way.
Oh, it's not the same video, is it?
Absolutely.
It is the same video. Why did those of you who didn't see it not see it? Why didn't you see it, do you think? You were so focused. Yes, because that was the instruction.
Yeah.
And I've directed you towards that, and your whole effort has been directed towards that. I didn't see the gorilla when I was first showing this video. Even the second time, actually, I never saw the gorilla, which is even more worrying. He said, look and see whatever you can see, and I still don't see it. I'll tell you why, actually. Because I was still concerned about what was the actual number of passes. I was still going that way. So, you know, the gorilla thing was just, no, don't be ridiculous, I can't be anything like that. So I just counted again. So a number of us fall into that trap, don't we? Now, one of the questions I've got, and that's why I alluded to the updating of the strategy, just, you know, let's just update it, is what gorillas might we be missing when we are so focused on what we do, so focused on delivering some fantastic experience or some fantastic service or some fantastic product, whatever it may be. We're so focused on that. How can we make sure that this is not how we end up? And the whole theme of this session is summarized by this hand movement. So you can go after this. Even those of us who consider ourselves to be very aware, in touch with what's going on, when we focus in, and also, as you guys know, as well as I do, when we're involved, when we're in it, when we're in an organization and we're in it, sometimes it takes some other stimulus to make us stand back from it. It's the biggest trap you can fall into. We're so involved in it, and we're involved in it emotionally, and we're involved in it certainly physically and mentally. So, one of the worries I've got with that is, How do we ensure that we don't miss those gorillas? But I think most organizations, and certainly many leaders, fall into 5 key traps when they're thinking about where they're trying to take their organizations. The first one is this one. This quite narrow, focused thinking on, and sometimes it's because you become so emotionally attached to the thing that you're delivering. You know, the people who fall in love with their product or their service, you often hear it on The Apprentice. They so fall in love with their idea, and then they have that group thing that makes them go, it's the most wonderful idea ever. By the way, if you hear any phrases on The Apprentice such as, I've got an idea and it's really brilliant. Anyone who says that their own idea is really brilliant before anyone else has said so, you've just got to be a bit suspicious. So, that very narrow thinking, missing gorillas. Sometimes we haven't got the right people in the room to make sure we've got the diversity of thinking to take this organization, this problem, this opportunity forward. Everyone just maybe looks a bit alike. Okay? So have we got a mix of the right people on board? Where are our disruptors? Where are our people who are going to challenge us and say, hang on a second, have you thought about doing it this way? There's also a little nod here to, will people speak truth to power as well? So will they tell people who are their colleagues or their line managers or elders in the community what they really think? Or could that be damaging? That falls into this third mistake. And in fact, 2 more finally. Oh, we're just very busy. There's so much to do. There's so many problems to sort out. I hear a phrase a lot, I'd love to be more strategic, but I've just got so much to do. I am a strategic-minded person, but I just never get around to it. I often, in my work, I should say, challenge that. Because there's also plenty of other people who are very, very busy, and they get round to it. So there's something in your mindset there that's stopping you. It's not just that you're very busy. Now, it might be a fear of going into that area that's going to take you to new pastures and challenge old thinking, or it might be something else going on. And finally, the 5th mistake. You know this old puzzle. Which of these lines is longer?
They're the same.
They're the same. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? They're not the same. The one at the top is longer. And you know why they're not the same? Because I've changed it. But when you recognize it, you recognize it as being something you knew. It's an old truth. And that old truth still exists for most of us. Well, what happens if I change the game? By the way, I don't change the game changes. So these are 5 big traps that I've identified. There's many more that you guys will be able to identify that we can fall into because of the fact that we're in it. Now, if you don't recognize a lot of those in yourself, that it may well be that you have more of a mindset to doing a lot more of that. So, with that in mind, these 5 things are absolutely critical. Now, one organization that fell into this trap terribly. How many people here have heard of a company called Smith Corona? If we're slightly on the other side of 40, we might have. Smith Corona, by their own admission, the world's best typewriter company up until the mid-90s. And Smith Corona made every one of those 5 mistakes in the 1990s. The world's best typewriter company, they were making hundreds of millions of profits in 1989. And they met a small computer company, you might know the name now, but at the time they weren't known, called Acer. And they said, we should go into partnership. And if I'd thrown these 5 accusations at them, they said, of course, we're going into partnership with Acer. We know what we're doing, we know what the future looks like. And do you know what happened? We went to partnership with Acer. And after a year or so, they went, nah, we don't really like this. The future's not in any of this. Let's come back to that. So, I've realized that the number one strategy question for all of us is this. You have to know, and this is the start point to avoid some of this, what business you're in. Now, don't take the word business to mean you have to be in business. So the phrase I like to use is this one. Can you, in an elevator conversation of 30 seconds, describe, we are in the business of X. So I'm going to ask you, for a couple of minutes, to turn to the person next to you with the challenge of this. Either choosing your professional work, or your community work if that differs. Can you describe to the person next to you, as if you were in an elevator with them, for not too many floors, because they'd probably get out at some point if you started getting a bit weird, and say, we're in the business of X. What would you say to them? Just have a go at that with the person next to you. It's such a simple question. And people sometimes turn around to me initially and they go, oh, for goodness sake. We know what business we're in. You put two people from the same organization and ask them that question, you get two different answers. Now remember, what business you're in isn't necessarily what you do. It's not necessarily a description of what you do. It's not necessarily a description of your product or service or whatever. And what I like to say is here, is by answering this question, and this is absolutely critical, particularly for those of us who overload ourselves with far too many things that we deliver to other people, it determines what we're in and what we're not in. And this is important. It's a brilliant question to ask in your organization. What don't we do? And what shouldn't we be doing? I heard a talk once where they said, it'd be much better if we were all to make not-to-do lists. And I really loved that. So, what business aren't we in? And if you're in it already, you might change it to, what shouldn't we be in? What have we drifted into? Because answering this question helps you avoid strategic drift and brings you back to the core purpose of your organization. And this is vital. I actually recommend that organizations, companies, whatever, ask this question every 6 months. 10 years ago, we said ask it every year. Now I want it to be every 6 months, because you do know now you need a new strategy every 18 to 24 months. You can forget the 5-year plan. I mentioned Smith Corona. They fell into this trap of going, we've been at the forefront of typewriter development since the 1890s. For those of you who do remember what a typewriter is, automatic carriage return. Fantastic. A screen with one line of text that would hold 8,000 characters. Smith Corona. Correction devices with effectively Timpex. Remember that stuff? They were the first to do that. The first to invent a kind of daisy wheel. For those of us who are slightly older, you'll know what a daisy wheel is. Go on eBay, you'll be able to get one. They're fantastic. So this company says, you know what? We know this. We know what people want. We've always been at the forefront. And actually, we're the number one player, and we'll continue to be. And that's what the chief executive said when they got out of the deal with ASA. Well, you know, the trouble is, I think the what business are we in question leads us to this example. Do you want to be the world's greatest typewriting company? Or, and this is what Smith Corona should have said, or do you want to be everywhere where human beings are recording thought?